Welcome to the InSession Film Podcast for October 20th, 2013. This is episode 35, and I'm JD Duran.
And I'm Scott Pollard.
And this week on the InSession Film Podcast, we were supposed to have a guest, and Drew Koenig from MovieBuffHaven.com, but kind of last minute scheduling conflicts kind of came into the picture. So he unfortunately isn't going to be joining us, but I'll just throw out a promo for him anyway. Go and check out his stuff at MovieBuffHaven.com, and hopefully we'll get him on the show sometime soon. And on the show this week, Scott and I are going to be reviewing The Fifth Estate, and we're going to be discussing our top 3 computer genius characters. Then we're going to go into a little bit of a fun conversation. We're going to talk about movie accuracies, story accuracies, how people perceive them. That should be a pretty fun conversation. Got a lot of great responses on Twitter and on the website, so I'm pretty excited to talk about that. And then we're going to finish off the show with movie news and movies we got to see over the last week. But before we get into it, Scott, how was your week?
My week was pretty good, man. I had a good week at work and watched a lot of the baseball games. And although the Red Sox and the Cardinals are in the World Series, I'll still watch it, I guess, even though those are the two I least wanted. But, you know, other than that, that's about all I did.
Well, I will say the last couple of nights is the only baseball I've paid attention to is my Tigers were in
rooting for them hard,
ACLs. Too. Yeah, I was rooting for them, unfortunately. Didn't pull it off, although some of those calls were, a little bogus, possibly. I know a lot of my friends who follow it a lot closer than I were, they were going crazy on Twitter.
Yeah,
so,
I can understand that.
Yeah, so it was a bit crazy.
How was your week, man?
My week was pretty good. I want to say a happy birthday to my lovely fiance, Brandy.
Happy birthday, Brandy.
Had a birthday this last week, and we celebrated last night with her Florida State Seminoles destroying Clemson. That was the best birthday gift they could have gave her.
Yes, and they did give her a big gift.
They did. But it was a good week. It was very busy, and just getting ready for her birthday, and her parents were in town a little bit, so very busy, but it was good. I got to see a lot of good movies, and I'm really excited to talk about them. I know we'll get into this later in the show, but I got to finally see Parkland.
Oh, yeah.
That came out over the last couple weeks. I
liked it.
I liked it. It was a little bit unique. We'll get into that a little bit later.
Yeah.
But we have a lot to get into for the show, so let's get into it.
And here we go.
You're listening to the InSession Film Podcast. This is episode 35. So, Scott, does Julian Assange have any incriminating information on you?
JD, I'll need my lawyer here to answer that question.
14 pages in The Guardian, 12 in the New York Times. This is more coverage than all the leaks we have had combined. We are winning an information war, which goes beyond any short-term alliance we have with the mainstream media. And you want to throw it all away because you fear that some U.S. government informer might come to harm?
These are human beings, Julian. And their lives are at stake.
Well, what about the lives of the soldiers and the civilians involved in these conflicts? Death squads, unreported civilian casualties, countless incidents of friendly fire. This is information the world needs to know. So the next time you find yourself lecturing me about this organization, please try to remember why I created it and why I hired you to help me.
Okay, The Fifth Estate is directed by Bill Condon and stars Benedict Cumberbatch, Daniel Bruhl, and a few other people as well. So Scott, what did you think about The Fifth Estate?
Well, I thought The Fifth Estate was I had some expectations going into it that it might be a really interesting film and a really good way to learn more about the WikiLeaks whole situation here. But coming out of it, I just felt like it never really captured me, and it's well crafted, but it was uninspiring. So I had a lot of problems with it. What about you?
I thought it was kind of interesting. I don't know a ton about the backstory to this, and I think I came into the movie with a little bit of a fresh canvas, I guess you could say, not knowing much about it other than some of the stuff that's kind of come out lately, and especially some of the interviews and things I listened to before we went to see the movie and all that sort of stuff. So coming out of it, I sort of agree with you on some level. I do think it was pretty well put together. I thought some of the metaphors that they visually put together to kind of show you what these guys were thinking and how they were kind of reacting to the stuff that was going on. I thought that was kind of interesting, especially when you find out like who all the people behind the scenes are at WikiLeaks. Yeah. I thought like the way they kind of showed that visually, I thought that was pretty interesting. And I thought the performances were really good, and I thought that was really well put together. The script is going to be, I think, the big thing people will have a hard time with a lot of this. It is a story about petty differences between Benedict Cumberbatch and Daniel Bruhl's characters. I guess the one thing that I didn't know going into the movie that I took away from is that this is not really about Julian Assange, really. It's more about Daniel Bruhl's character and what he's seeing. And it is based off of the book that part of the script is based off of the book that the real life character wrote. So I can kind of see that now. I did not know that going into the movie, but coming out of it, I definitely see that. And so halfway through the movie, I'm going, oh, this isn't really about Julian Assange. It's really about Daniel Bruhl's character. And I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I hear you. I do think that it was more about their relationship and stuff like that. And maybe that's where it kind of lost me as far as how much I liked it or whatever. Like I said, it didn't like throw me off completely, but I felt like they were kind of going for a social network kind of thing. I felt like they were trying to explain the like origin of this WikiLeaks thing, but also more into the relationships of the people in the film than Social Network went into.
Sure.
Social Network kind of stuck with Facebook, how it started, and certain people were kind of thrown off, and it wasn't really all about their relationships. Whereas here, I felt like, especially between Daniel Berg and his wife Anki, I guess that's how you pronounce it. I felt like their relationship was like way too explored, and like it went way too melodramatic. We were getting like slow-mo moments in bed with them laying together and things like this that just really threw me off, But then I went and looked at who the director was, and it was Bill Condon, who did the last two Twilight movies. So he has a knack for this kind of stuff. So maybe this is a way that women or the ladies or some of the more sensitive folks will like this movie. I don't know. But it just felt like too much for me. Let's put it that way.
I'll say that was probably one of the few things that actually worked for me, at least in terms of getting me engaged into the movie. I didn't really care so much about the pettiness between the two main characters necessarily, but it gave me a little bit more of a backstory into the emotional aspect of Daniel Berg and what he was trying to do and how he came into it. And I also think it set up really well the latter half of the movie, because as the film started to progress, we got more and more of the perspective from Daniel Berg. And I think without that setup, it kind of takes away from what they were trying to do in terms of the third act of the film, because it is from his perspective and what he's feeling and the losses that he's having to do and the sacrifices he's having to make. And without that, I feel like it doesn't quite work as well. Now, I do agree with you on some level, though, that the mixing of the pettiness between the two main characters, and then we're getting this backstory of Daniel Berg's characters, that could have been executed a little bit better. And I think that's the thing that for the entire version of our podcast, be sure to subscribe to us on iTunes or on Stitcher, or check us out online at InSessionFilm.com.